Hello everyone, it's Jen. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Today I'm making 5 cards using a mini stamp set. This is the Year 10 by Lawn Fawn with this sweet cactus. I've gone ahead and colored these up off screen. I do have a colored map at the end of the video listing all the Copic colors I used. So we're going to jump right into card number 1. So I started off with a nice clean and simple card. I'm using this purple plaid paper from Doodle Hoppy Easter. I cut that out with a stitched rectangle die, and then I used a stitched circle die here in some cardstock. This is just regular cardstock, and I'm going to use this as a homemade mask. So I'm just using my Distress Oxide in Worn lipstick, and I'm going to go ahead and just create a little circle here. So this is a very clean and simple card to start us off. I'm just going to adhere this panel down onto the pattern paper. I did cut this white cardstock out of a stitched rectangle die as well. And I wanted to add some splatters to this card. So I'm using my white gouache. This is just an opaque paint. And I'm going to add some water to that and just dip my paintbrush in it and add some splatters to the card. This just gives a fun embellishment to a very clean and simple card. So for this one, I'm using the cactus image, and I've gone ahead and added some of the flowers to the top of the cactus. I did pop that up on some foam tape. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So I'm going to use the sentiment in the mini stamp set. I'm going to stamp that out with my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink. And the sentiment reads, "Hope your day is on point." Now the sentiment actually says birthday, but I'm going to mask off the birth part because I wanted to show you that with some creative masking, you can really stretch these mini stamps. Now, I didn't really plan out my placement for the sentiment. I wish I had stamped this a little bit over to the left. And you'll notice here I did miss a little part of that D, so I'm just going to re-stamp that. And because I'm using my mini Misty here, I'm able to get that in the exact same place. And then I just tried to figure out where I wanted to add the on point. So you can see this is a little close together, but I think it still works just fine. But if you wanted to recreate something like this, I would just have the bottom sentiment there a little bit more over to the left. For some final embellishments, I grabbed out these really old black rhinestones from my stash. These are just purchased from a Canadian dollar store. Just trying to use up some of the things that I have in my stash at this time. So I'm just going to have a bunch of those spread out in a diagonal, kind of matching the same diagonal pattern I used with the white paint. And there's the first card. So moving on to card number 2, another clean and simple card. I'm using this smile die. This is a Lawn Fawn die. And for this little cactus, I'm going to add one of the smiley faces. And then I'm going to add the little flowers on top of this little cactus as well. So this one, I colored the flowers and the pot in a pretty purple color. And I'm just going to give this little cactus some rosy cheeks as well. So I just cut the smile out of some black cardstock. Now I'm going to trim out the L. So I want the cactus to replace the L in the word smile. And I'm just going to kind of center that to the bottom 1/3 of the card. I guess it's not really centered. It's more a little bit off to the right hand side. So we'll just add some liquid adhesive here. That will give me a little bit of wiggle room so I can ensure that I get the word exactly where I want it. And I'm just going to tuck either side of those tails behind the cactus. And again, I will pop this up on some foam tape. This is a really easy way just to add some interest to your card. So I do need to dot my I here. I'm just going to use my jewel picker for that and kind of place it underneath the arm of our cactus. And then I decided I wanted some black splatters. I don't have any black acrylic paint, so I wanted to see if the Versafine Clair would work for splattering, and it was a fail. So now I know that I won't try this again. it really didn't work. So I decided to bring in my Catherine Pooler mini ink here in Midnight, and this worked much better. I'm gonna have to get myself some black paint so I can do some splattering. I just wanted to tie in a little bit more of that black that I used for the smile die cut word. So you can see here, I'm just going to flick this with my paintbrush, cleaned up my glass mat, and then I'm going to add some Nuvo drops in White Blizzard. These just have a little bit of glitter in them. And we're moving on to card number 3. I wanted to create a really pretty desert-like sunset for this card, so I've picked 3 of my Distress Oxides for that. I'm using Ripe Persimmon, Abandoned Coral, and Fossilized Amber. So I'm starting off with the Fossilized Amber, and I'm not worried about getting it to the bottom of the card because I am going to be adding a little sand hill to that. So for this first layer, I just want to make sure that I get good coverage of each of the inks here. So I'm not really worried about blending them at this time. And then once I get the Ripe Persimmon, this one on the top, down, I'll go back through my colors and start blending those together. Now I'm just using regular cardstock for this. I do love ink blending on Bristol Smooth, but with the traditional Tim Holtz blending tools, you can really easily blend on regular cardstock. So I just wanted to show you that you don't need to have special paper in your stash to do this technique. I love how these 3 colors blend. They give a really gorgeous sunset type color, and I thought it would be the perfect backdrop for our little scene here. So I've already gone ahead and cut out my little desert sand here with some border dies, and I'm going to alter the cacti for this card. So I just wanted to show you that you don't always have to use the stamps in these mini stamps as they are. Get creative with them and see if there's different ways that you can use them. So I wanted to make sure that when I tucked these cacti behind my little desert hill here, that you wouldn't be able to see those pots. So as you can see, I've arranged them from left to right there, so they're spread out across the card panel. I'm going to adhere my desert to the card panel with some liquid glue, and the little numbers on the back of my cacti just correspond with the color combination that I used, which you'll find in the color map at the end of the video. So I'm just going to adhere those into place. I haven't quite adhered them down. You can see me now. I'll make sure I have them in the right place that I want them, and then I'll add some pressure to make sure that they adhere nicely. I'm going to use my jewel picker here. I'm going to add a flower to the top of the cactus on the right, and then the one on the left as well. This is a newer tool to me, and I absolutely love it. It's great for picking up little images or embellishments and really helps ensure that you get it in the place that you want it. For this card, I'm going to stamp out the entire sentiment that comes in the mini stamp set. So this one will read, "Hope your birthday is on point." And I thought this made for a really nice generic birthday card that you could send to anyone. It would be especially fun if you know someone who lives where there are cacti. So I wanted to go ahead and add some pattern paper behind my panel. I cut out a piece of this pattern paper from the Lawn Fawn Perfectly Plaid 6x6 paper pad. And I did that with a stitched rectangle die so that it will match my focal panel there with my images. To add some shimmer, I'm using my Nuvo Shimmer Glitter Pen here, and I'm going to add that to all 3 of the cacti, and that will finish card number 3. So moving on to card number 4, I'm going to create my own panel here, almost like my own pattern paper. So I'm using some Nina Desert Storm cardstock, and I'm using my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink, and I'm just going to stamp the cactus all around my paper, ensuring that some of them are coming off of the focal panel here. I stamped out the little flowers as well. And then once I color this, I will go ahead and cut this panel down with a stitched rectangle die as well. So I brought out my colored pencil. These are my Prismacolors. I have the 36 set. I'm just going to show you how I colored one image, and then I did the exact same for all of the rest of them. So I just picked out a dark green for the bottom here, and I'm just doing one thin layer, and I'm sort of blending that out with a mid-tone green color. And then I will come back in with a lighter green for the rest of the cactus. Now, I did decide to go over this a second layer, so you'll see once I show you the completed image that the cactus is a little bit darker than how it appears here. But when I'm coloring the pot for this one, I did do a second layer, and I really like how that looked, so I went ahead and did that for all of the cacti as well. So for the flowers, I decided to do a really pretty magenta color. So I'm just going to add, like I did with the cactus, I'm going to add my darkest color. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a lighter marker to blend, or not a marker, I'm so used to saying marker, pencil to blend that out. And again, off screen, I did go over those a second time as well. So for the pots, I decided to do them in a brown color, just to keep the palette nice and neutral. So I am going to go ahead here, just like the other areas, and start with my darkest colored pencil. And then I'm going to blend that out with this color here. So I'm using a medium color. Actually, I'm only using a 2-color blend for the pot. So you can see this is where I decide to bring back in that darkest pencil. And I'm going to add another layer here and then blend that out with the lightest. And that will give me a really smooth blend with the colored pencils. So here's a look at the panel completely colored. I love the look that this gives, and you would never know that this comes from a mini stamp set. So I've gone ahead, like I mentioned before, and cut that out with a stitched rectangle. And now I'm going to stamp out my sentiment on some white cardstock. So again, using all of the words to create the full sentiment from the stamp set. I'm just going to use my Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer here. I love this trimmer. I'm not very good at cutting things out, well, cutting out sentiments into perfectly straight rectangles, so I do like to use a trimmer. So I'm just going to trim these up. I do end up bringing in my scissors to trim them up a little bit more, so they're not exactly straight by the time that I'm done, but I'm going to go ahead and add these on to my card panel just with some foam tape. I wasn't quite sure what color I wanted to have the sentiment stamped out. I'm not sure I'm crazy about the white, but I do think it stands out nice on top of the background that I created for this card. I don't know what other color I would have used. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to know down in the comment section. So here I'm just trying to figure out where I want my placement. Again, I'm going to trim these up a little bit more. Now I was really inspired to do this video because my friends Mary Polanco, Courtney Kreber, and I did a video similar to this previously where we, together the three of us, created 10 different cards with the Lawn Fawn. It's the one with the little unicorn stamp, and we had a ton of fun creating those cards with the little mini stamp set, so I wanted to try it again. I will link to a couple of those videos at the end on my end screen if you're interested in checking those out as well. But it can be really fun to challenge yourself to see how many different card designs you can come up with just, in this case, I mean, there's only one large image, and then there's the little flower and the two little faces, and that's it. But I think I was able to create some really beautiful cards. So moving on to the next card, I am going to bring in a few other stamp sets for this particular one. So I am kind of going out of the mini stamp set, but I wanted to show you that you can get really creative and bring in some other things that you have in your stamp collection to elaborate on the mini stamp set. So that's what we're going to do. I'm making a Christmas card. It's my first Christmas card of 2020. So I went ahead and cut out this little bauble paper or Christmas ornament paper from the Really Rainbow Christmas Paper Pad by Lawn Fawn, and this will go really great with the little ornaments that I'm going to add to my cacti for this card. I also cut out a stitched rectangle with a piece of this blue pattern paper that comes in the same paper pad, and that's going to kind of be the focal panel for my images. So I'm using the Lawn Fawn Yeti or Not stamp set, and in that stamp set there is this sentiment that says, "Have a really cool Christmas." So I thought that that would go well with this, a little bit of a play on words, because it's not particularly cool, I don't think, in the desert where there would be cacti, but compared to where I live in Canada, I think cool would be relative. So just kind of playing on the sentiment here, I went ahead and cut that out with a stitched banner die. I'm going to add a little face to one of our one little cactus here, and I'm going to add a Santa hat from him. This is from the Yeti or Not stamp set as well. So he's kind of going to be the Santa cactus, and then I'm going to have two other ones over to the right hand side of the card. I'm just trying to get placement at this point. And then I will go ahead and decorate all the cacti with some fun ornaments. I'm going to use the little present and the ornament from the Yeti or Not stamp set. I also chose these images because I thought that even if you don't have this stamp set, you might have another stamp set with a Santa hat and a Christmas present, or you could really easily draw these as well. So I'm just going to add some foam tape here to two of my cacti. I'm going to place the Santa one to the left, and I'm going to have him just over that sentiment a little bit. And then this other one that will be to the front, I will pop up on some foam tape as well. The one to the back, I'm going to adhere straight down with some liquid adhesive. Now this one, I wanted some interest, so I added that to the back a little bit. I don't know if it looks too much like it's floating. I can't decide if it's bothering me or not. So for now I've left it, but I could probably go back and add some presents under it if it really started to bug me. But let me know, do you think that it's floating a little too much off that sentiment or not? So here's where I'm going to add the fun little ornaments. I love the bright colors on the cacti. I think it looks really fun to have them all decorated for Christmas. And once I do that, I'm going to add some of the little flowers as well. So I colored the flowers for this card in the red color combination that I used. I'm going to add 3 little presents here as well. So I'm going to have one by Santa, like he's delivering the gifts. And I did pop those up on some foam tape as well. And then I'm going to have the other 2 with the other 2 cacti to the right. I just got to make sure I get that into place. And then I can go ahead and adhere those other 2, like I said. So I hope that this gives you some inspiration for using your mini stamp sets. I had a ton of fun creating with this one. Like I said, it's fun to challenge yourself to come up with really fun ideas with such a small stamp set. Of course, you could mix this with a number of other sets to really get some more elaborate scene cards, but I was trying to keep it as minimal as possible. So here's where I'm going to add the flowers. I am going to add one to the top of the Santa hat as well. I thought that would be really cute and would just kind of play on the desert kind of feel for this Christmas card. So Santa's going to have a little cactus flower. I do need to add some foam tape behind that to make sure that it's nice and level. And then I added some Nouveau Glaze to all of the ornaments, and then I'm just going to use a gel pen here to add some highlights, and that will pretty much finish this up, except once I finished this card, I felt like there was too much white space to the middle of the two cacti, the Santa one and then the other two. So I did decide to bring in this speech bubble from the Bug Deal, and then I stamped Ho 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 from the Ho 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 Holidays stamp set, and I felt like that really filled out that card. So I'm going to slow this down and show you all 5 cards. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you would like to see more like this. I'd also love to know if you had a favorite card from this set. I don't know, I think I'm really partial to the colored pencil one, but I did have a lot of fun creating the Christmas card as well. So here's a look at the color map with all of the Copic colors that I used to color the cacti. Thank you so much for watching. Here's the couple of videos for the other mini stamp we did with multiple cards. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you really soon in the next video. Bye!